Hello everyone, and welcome to SpiritMonkey. On today's episode, I will be discussing Runic Divination. In a previous video, I spoke briefly about divination in general, their types of classifications, and mentioned some common methods of divining. In this video, I wish to cover a divination method in a bit more detail. For this, I have chosen rune divination or rune casting. Now, as with all forms of divination, the practitioner holds the key to proper interpretation. Using their personal intuition, knowledge of the divination system, and experience gained through the practice, the diviner is capable of gaining rather valuable insight into whatever they wish to divine. In the Northern European spellcraft tradition, rune casting has been the divination method of choice. Not only for the seers, but anyone who wishes to use it, and that's quite the beauty of rune casting. The practitioners of traditional Norse magic are known as Vitki, or Volva, which is the feminine word, among many other names. Now, these practitioners are commonly associated with a magic system known as Seder, Seid, Seither, or Spycraft, however you wish to pronounce it. This practice is generally seen as a feminine art, however many do debate this. Regardless of one's gender or magical practice, anyone who is adept in using runes is known as a runester or rinster. The gender, methods and origin arguments of Nordic magical practice is of no current concern, as the runic system itself can be used by anyone willing to learn. As Edward Thorson states in his book Futhark, a Handbook of Rune Magic, one of the most potent aspects of the runic system of magic and philosophy is its openness and lack of dogmatism. He also states that the runes and the runic system, as an eternal expression of world laws, may be constantly put to new uses without in any way violating their timeless and archaic characteristics. It is therefore easy for the practitioner with experience of other systems, personal preferences, and methods to use the runic system, and alter it and build upon standard rune divination methods and means to fit their personal individualism. With that said, though, the runes and their meanings are not to be altered, but can be elaborated upon by adding more correspondences that fit the rune and runester according to their experience. This is true for any divination system one uses that was not created by oneself. Runes play a vital role in Nordic culture, myth and magical practice. As the author D.J. Conway writes about the Allfather Odin in his book Norse Magic, that according to the Ynglinga saga, he learned the magical art called Seid from Freya, but still he thirsted for more magical knowledge. In frustration, he hanged himself from Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights. At the very last of his endurance, Odin saw the runes written clearly and understood them. For us humans, we luckily do not have to hang ourselves and be pierced by a spear in order to learn the rune meanings and magical value. All we need to do is sacrifice some time to learn and practice rune casting. In this video, I will explain the runic divination system and some ways on how it is performed. For more detail on each individual rune, multiple sources are available online and in bookstores, so just go have a look out there. Details of each rune's meaning will not be given in this video, so see the reference list in the video description for some reliable sources of information. It is important to learn as much as possible from the mythological system that the runes stem from, to get a greater insight into each rune. Spend time learning the mythology and cosmology of the Norse mythos. This will ingrain the symbolism into your conscious and subconscious mind, which will make the rune casting more easy to interpret and understand their meaning and relations. Reflecting upon the runes in a meditative state, chanting the runes and studying the symbolism in detail will provide much greater results than simply working from a reference book. This takes time. However, one must not let this keep you from your practice and enjoying the art, even though it is a serious task, as any form of divination is. But the best way to learn remains to actually sit down and practice it. Now let us have a look at the Runic divination system. As stated before, the Runic system is very open and methods of divination can be quite diverse. It is up to the practitioner to find a method that really suits them. The runes used in divination is also diverse, as different sets of Futharks or runes are found throughout history. The oldest, or said to be the oldest, are known as the Elder Futhark, with 24 runes, while the younger Anglo-Saxon Futhark is comprised of 33, sometimes a bit less or a bit more, while many sets have been uncovered comprising of anything from roughly 16 to 33 or more runes. Their history and development does remain debated. So in most forms of rune casting, and in this video, the Elder Futhark runes will be used. In rune casting with the Elder Futhark, a 25th rune is also sometimes added to the group. This is a blank rune known as Weird. However, the interpretation of this rune is contradictory at best, and depending on where the information is gathered, you'll get completely different ideas about it. So, if you're a beginner, I suggest leaving this rune out of the casting, at least for the time being. Many rather adept runesters also ignore this concept of the weird rune completely. Many rune casting systems separate the 24 Elder Futhark into what is known as Ættir or Ert, meaning family. When this is done, 3 sets of 8 runes are identified. The first set is known as Freya's 8, which is described in the Llewellyn Complete Book of Psychic Empowerment as being primarily related to the outer world of practical and mundane matters. The second set is known as the 8 of Hagalas, described by Llewellyn as reflecting the inner world of emotional matters and the psychological conditions present within the individual. Now the final set is known as Tyr's 8, which refers, as Llewellyn again states, to the relationship between people and to the sexual side of life. He also continues by writing that the third Ert synthesizes the inner and outer worlds. For the time being, this classification is not too important, especially if you're a beginner. But of course, the more you go and research every facet of whatever system you're using, the better off you'll be. So, in your own time, please go and research that. Now, getting to the actual act of divining using the runes, we can find that there are multiple layouts to explore, just as one would in the tarot system, for example. Also, various methods of casting are available, which I will briefly discuss now. As with all forms of divination, it is recommended to enter a state of mind that is receptive to the subconscious mind. In other words, an altered state of consciousness. This can be achieved in whichever way suits the particular practitioner. For example, some prefer chanting, some prefer meditation, self-hypnosis, or a little bit of herbal help, just to name a few. Once this state is achieved, a question is formulated to divine and kept in the forefront of the conscious mind. Then, one moves to the actual act of casting the runes. Now, traditionally, the main method of using runes is not so much unlike osteomancy, which is the typical throwing bones, or at times casting for the I Ching. Now, here all 24 Elder Futhark are placed in a bowl, holder, or most commonly a little cloth bag. Then the runes are strewn in front of the practitioner. From this, multiple factors are taken into consideration. First, the runes that fall face down are typically ignored in many methods. Then the other runes are read according to how exactly they fell. The runes will be analyzed according to their position in relation to one another, or how far they fall from one another. Maybe some of them are connected or not. And if they are the right side up, slanted, or upside down from the practitioner's perspective. Now, the general shape or impression of how all the runes fell are also analyzed, but this takes some practice and a lot of really intuitive thinking. Now, this method is recommended for those who have had some practice with rune casting, as the reading may be difficult to determine for any novice, since all 24 runes are used. Luckily, there are many layouts and methods that one can use. So let us look at some of the other basic casting methods. Please remember that the state of mind, intent, and clarity of the question remain some of the most important factors of any form of divination. So here's a small list of different casting methods. First up, we have what is known as the simple cast. This method is also read as the traditional method I just mentioned, but less runes are used. Instead of using all the runes, the runester instead reaches into the bag or holder and then grabs a handful, which are then strewn in front of the practitioner. From here, a reading can be conducted, which is a bit more simple than the traditional method, since a lot less runes fit into your hand. The simple cast is a good way to practice for the advanced traditional casting method, as they are somewhat similar. Second, we can use the 3 rune cast. Now, in this method, runes are taken individually from the holder or bag, then placed face down and one by one in a row for 3 in total. The runes are taken from the bag intuitively. Some perhaps sense or feel which runes to draw. Some maybe get a little spark in their minds as to say, that's the rune. But either way, you use your personal method of feeling this energy or your own personal intuition. Now, the 3 runes that were placed are then revealed in sequence from left to right typically. The first rune represents a factor of the past, the middle one the present, and the final refers to something in the future in regards to the divine question. Getting to the third method, we have the 9 rune cast. In this form of casting, 9 runes are again intuitively taken from the container without looking at them, but simply sensing them. The 9 runes are held in the hand and then cast or strewn in front of the runester. The face-up runes are analyzed according to their positions. For example, those closer to the center are of more immediate concern than the outer runes. Again, the runes close to one another are related, and the runes that fell face down are not discarded in this case, but turned over in place and then analyzed as a possible factors of the future, again in relation to the other runes. The fourth method that I will mention here is called the runic wheel. This is quite an interesting one. This method requires the runester to lay out runes in a wheel formation after drawing them individually from the container. The runes will again be placed one by one face down, as to not reveal the rune until the interpretation begins. Now, this method uses varying amounts of runes, the most common number being 13, or 25. But for 25 runes you either need to add the word to the Elder Futhark or use the Anglo-Saxon Futhark. In this example, the 13 rune wheel, the runester usually starts by placing a rune at the 9 o'clock position, then the 8 o'clock, and so on in a counterclockwise fashion until a circle is formed with 12 runes. The 13th rune is then placed in the center of the clock. The runes are turned right side up and analyzed according to their progression and relation to one another. The rune in the center then usually refers to a primary rune of the divination or overarching theme of the divination. I think it's again important to state that all these methods can be altered by the practitioner according to their preference or how exactly they would like to perform the divination. For example, with the runic wheel, perhaps even just 6 runes can be used, where 5 form a small pentagram and then 1 in the center is the overarching theme. It is really up to the practitioner, and with advanced practice, it'll get much easier. Many more methods exist, and many more can be developed by the practitioner. Forms of the tarot spreads may even be used with the runes if the practitioner are familiar with them. As stated before, the rune casting system is non-dogmatic and open to variation without losing their primary meaning or value. Non-dogmatic to me is quite an important factor, because dogma is usually what causes me to run away from any form of spirituality. As one uses the system more often, the more clear every reading will get, until one day it becomes almost second nature. Besides using runes in divination, they may also be used for actual magical practice and spellcasting. But that is a topic for another day. With all this said, I hope this video provided some insight into the runic divination system and perhaps inspired you to give it a go. But until next time, keep well, good people of Earth. This is SpiritMonkey out. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. If you liked the video, please click like and subscribe. Also check out our main webpage, spiritmonkey.me, for a lot more interesting articles and links to all the other pages. And also check out our Patreon page. If you feel like giving $1, please do. It's all appreciated. Other than that, have an awesome day. Cheers.